All right, it's 5 after. We don't have very many people here, so I don't even think we're going to try to do the agenda. Well, we'll do part of it. Let me show my screen. Um, this window. That's the worst part. I have like 700 damn windows and I never know which one to share. Okay, so if everyone has logged in, or I'm sorry, signed in, thank you. Anyone who hasn't, can someone paste this link? I just pasted it a minute ago to sign in. So there's the SBOM Everywhere agenda, which we've basically been focusing on for this point. Before we kind of move to SBOM Everywhere, is there anyone here with any tooling items they have in mind? I will listen now. All right. So the SBOM Everywhere agenda, Vicky had a suggestion in the last meeting we had, which was in September. It's been like a freaking month. But is that everyone introduce themselves, not just the new people in the chat. And this is something I'd like to do kind of from every meeting from this point forward. So like, for example, I'll put in my chat, I'm Josh. I work at Anchor and am co-lead of the SBOM Everywhere group. So if everyone could just do something similar so everyone knows who everyone else is, who you work for, that kind of stuff, I think it would be valuable. I'm not going to push it, so if you don't, that's fine, but I think it would be appreciated. I've got one bit of update, I guess, for the Python library funding. I don't think it's Kate here. Did you show up, Kate? I can't see
Yeah,
you.
Kate showed up.
Oh, you did show up. Ah, hi, and you snuck in.
Sorry, I thought it was meant to start at 5 after, so that's when I showed up.
It is, and I'm bad at keeping track of things. So do you want to fill us in on that? Because you sent me a nice little blurb that I presented to the TAC last week, but I think it's interesting for everyone to understand what's going on.
Okay, so the library, the contractors have been working on, for the last month, on establishing the test bed to check the libraries, and that code is now public. They've been working with the Java stuff to test it, and they're going to be switching now that they've got the Python going to be looking at using it for fleshing out and cross-checking the Python stuff is working. I will go and find the link afterwards and put it in the minutes. If I guess so, and they've also started having, as of last Thursday, as requested, public meetings, and so anyone who's interested is welcome to drop in on the Thursday meeting and talk about the progress. And if you start to look at, if you're following the Python the Python tools repo, you'll see that the refactoring has started. And if you've got issues with the Python tools as they are today, please, please, it's a good time to start putting in your, I've got concerns about this area, or I don't think this is right, because this is what's starting to get addressed now.
And something that just showed up in my GitHub notifications, I haven't properly digested it yet, but the Brandon Lum asked the pip folks to start generating SPDX. They generate CycloneDX apparently, and the response was the SPDX library is terrible. We don't want to use it. And he just told them about this, and they seem interested. So hopefully we can get some, I guess, eyeballs from those folks.
Yeah, getting their eyeballs and helping us to steer it to a useful direction is very much welcome.
100%. Cool. So I'll put all the right people connected to that later today, which I thought was very exciting. All right. So I want to jump to the next one too, Kate, because there's been some activity in this. I saw in your draft document. Do you want to fill us in on kind of what we're looking at here?
So what we've done is we've started working with the CISA team. And if you look at the first page, that's had some group wordsmithing from this group as well as from that group to come up with a common set of what the definitions are and where there's concern points and things like that. What we want to do is come up with one set of definitions that both groups can use, and then working with the CISA community to put out the one pager and have it up on their site. So I think the path we're all pretty much aiming towards. From the discussions, you'll see certain visibility on, when are they used and things like that. So the next couple slides are being sort of populated just to make sure we have the clarity based on the discussions we had. So we'll probably be talking about that. Beyond that, it's, earlier stages, and this is also related to the software lifecycle phase as opposed to a CI/CD flow. But you should be able to map these into when in a CI/CD flow as well.
That's awesome. I'm very excited to see CISA and this group working together on this, which is perfect. And there's Justin, you can fill us in. Can you drop a link in the notes? Maybe there's a CISA tooling working group, or what do you call it, a working group? I forget the name you have for it, but it's on Thursdays.
Work stream working group. It's a working group, but the CISA lawyers like us to call it work stream for some reason. But yeah, you want me to drop like the general notes document or something? Yeah,
I think that'd be great for anyone interested. And this document specifically is kind of a mesh of those two groups that have come together, which is awesome. Well, our group and their group, I should say. Awesome. That's very exciting. I like this. Good synergy, right? That's what we'll call it. Let's go back here. Thank you for adding notes, David. I appreciate that. Okay, so we've got a couple more things here. Is Kathy on the call? I don't think so. No. So this one, the use cases probably needs some love and attention. I don't think anything particularly exciting has happened with this in a while. I don't have a lot to add. I'll spend some time looking at it later and see what we should do with it. Maybe just get rid of it is the first step for now. The NTIA documents. This one is interesting, actually. Kate has her name on it, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit because there is a proposal that Kate and I put together to fund this. And rather than turn these documents specifically into something useful, what we want to do, and I think I'm not going to show the CNCF landscape again because I keep showing it, but what's that?
Yeah.
Everyone knows what it is, I'll assume. If you don't, go look it up. But the idea is this landscape is really nice, and we want to create something similar just for SBOM. There is what did they call it? A mapping working group, I think, now in the OpenSSF that Chris Robinson is running, and their intent is to create something similar, but for all of the OpenSSF. I talked to them last week. They're comfortable letting us do our own thing for the moment. There's no intention of interfering. They view our work as complementary. But anyway, we want to put this together. If everyone wouldn't mind looking at it, adding comments, some of it's filled out pretty well, some of it still needs a little help. But fundamentally, we want to go to the governing board and say, give us some money, and we're going to get this done. And then the idea is once it's created, once we have a landscape, we're hopeful the projects themselves will keep their particular piece updated, because there's obviously an incentive for projects to be current and, I guess, discoverable on this. So, and part of that would be taking the NTIA documents in question will end up as inputs to this. And one thing of note is Chris Robinson, Krobe, as many of you know him, he generously offered to put together like a little mock-up for us of this in that call I had with them last week.
Oh, wonderful. That's lovely. That's excellent news.
Yeah. And he's good at that stuff. Like if you asked me to make a mock-up, it would be, no one would fund anything. So I'm very excited. Anyway, I need to get him that data. I haven't done it yet, but it's, I'd say this is going along as well as it can be. We take any input, otherwise just Kate and I will keep slogging along. It'll still probably be a month or more before this is ready to present to anybody. I ran up by the TAC last week. I would say they were ambivalent. I don't think they were particularly opposed or against it. Basically, they want more details, right? And we just don't have them all yet. And part of the more details was things like go talk to the diagramming committee. Part of the details were like, give us an example, you know, what is the purpose? What are we going to get out of this? And so, well, I guess one other thing, and this is something maybe for this group to discuss, and I would gladly take input right now. There were questions from the TAC about if we should include non-open source tools on this landscape.
Yes.
I think we should too. I think Kate and I are in agreement, and I would value any input from anyone if you think are strongly opposed or in favor of. Tracy.
So as someone who did the landscape for the CD Foundation, I have a couple of suggestions. Number one, we don't jump in and start coding the beast until you have a good document that really creates the categories.
Yeah.
Number two is the way that landscape code works is you can only be represented in one place. And it makes sense to do that. The open source projects get a little bit bigger of an icon, and then everybody else gets the smaller icons, and you don't have to be a member. It just is the landscape of the tools out there.
Right.
And Tracy, I have a quick question. Does the CNCF landscape includes like proprietary companies, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. They all do. Anybody can do a pull request and add their company to any of those sections. But the thing to remember when you're doing it is that you have to get specific enough and accurate enough on the categories so that companies will be able to identify what their primary service.
Right. So there's work going on here to take the NTIA efforts from before and in the CISA working group, get agreement on the categories. And so in that CISA SBOM, the SBOM tooling working group, there's focus on getting those categories identified. So part of the exercise of the life cycle and typing, where these types of tools is to fit into that together with some other information to start having like a set of 5 type of properties that we want to standardize on.
Yeah, but Kate, I think the those two statements may be in conflict because I think some of the tools categories and some of the tools intentionally cover multiples of those categories.
You should be able to articulate multiple you should be able to articulate that there's. I'm viewing this as filtering criteria, and I think when she said only in one place,
okay,
only
as
in one
opposed
place
to the
per
major categories.
Right. Yeah.
One category per company. And now we may just have one because we will get overly focused on tools that are SBOM related, but the landscape shouldn't just be an SBOM. It should be any open source security tooling. So we may have just one category that's SCA for all I know. I'm just putting it out there so that because it has to, we can't get really down in the weeds. They have to be fairly high level.
Well, okay, I wouldn't mind having a one-on-one with you, Tracy.
No, I don't want to. I just right now, really, I'm just putting it out there. That was my experience. We went through probably 4 different iterations with it over the course of 2 years at the CD Foundation. Yeah. It's not something I want to put my head into on this one. It takes too much. It would take too much time. I've already made that commitment. I'm just giving you what my experience has been, and keeping it high level and don't get in the weeds is a better way to build the landscape.
I think that makes sense. And I guess part of this as well is if we decide we need to add that feature, like the landscape code is open source, we'll fix it.
Yeah, I actually, just to check on it, I went to do a quick look, and it looks like it is actively maintained. The CNCF actively maintains that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they maintain theirs.
Yeah. It's meticulously maintained.
Well,
I like it. It makes me happy. Cool. So again, if anyone has comments or anything, like I'd love it if you'd review this and identify potential problems. One of the other aspects is if you look at the tasks, the expectations, everything says hours and estimate is to be determined. We hope to go out to potential contractors with this and just say, like, fill it in. What do you think it's going to take? and hopefully it won't be terrible. But again, like we literally have no idea. And I guess Tracy, on that regard, if you have any insight into like what the lift looks like to do something like this, I would value even just like guesses, because I don't even have a guess.
Yeah, it took me just to do the coding on it. It took me about 40 hours. It's hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I believe it.
It's hard, and get it set up so you can build it. And then over the course of 2 years, we probably, it became a living kind of landscape.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good point too. This is not something that's going to go from 0 to perfect in a month, right? It's going to be years. David, are you saying something?
No, it takes 40 hours to get started. I think the real question is, it hasn't been valuable enough. I think at least for the CNCF, the answer I think has been yes. So I think the idea is hopefully we can say yes here too. And if we can't, then we shouldn't do it. But
no one has questioned the value in doing this yet. The closest we've gotten is you right now. So
well, I'm really not questioning it. It's more of a
yeah. I know.
Is someone raising it?
And that's a good question though. We need to ask questions like that. Make sure.
And then I have to run, but the last thing I want to say about it is that what we learned at the CDF is that landscape can be a good marketing tool. I hate to bring it up, but it's true.
No, I agree.
So let's say, for example, we wanted to be able to include pen testing as part of the landscape. That's why I'm saying we have to continue to try to get it as broad as possible, because it ends up being a place for other conversation and bringing other types of members into the OpenSSF.
So that's actually part of that diagramming group, Tracy, is we want to focus on SBOM, and they view like our landscape fitting inside their landscape, if that makes sense.
However, yeah, that probably would, but I'm just letting you know, as we went along at the CDF, we realized if we were broader, we would cast a wider net for membership.
And it would not shock me if that ends up happening.
So with that, Vine, maybe it's really a landscape for OpenSSF, not a landscape.
Let's focus on SBOMs here.
Yep.
Let's focus on the wider one. Okay.
That's right. And there's another group, David, that's focused on that. They know about us. They understand that. They understand and expect this work to spill into their realm, and they're okay with that. Okay. So I think everyone is happy. And if nothing else, they also see us as a sort of guinea pig for like, what would this look like if we did it elsewhere? How much would it cost? That kind of stuff. So
okay.
I think
you referring to Krobe's architecture group?
Yep. I talked to them.
Okay, I'm over there too. So
yep. Yeah. And they were super receptive. They really like this, and they don't want to get in our way. So I was very pleased with that. Cool. Good. Again, if everyone could review it, I would be ecstatic. Okay, so we got this. We've got the scope and purpose document. I don't know if Brandon's done anything on that, and I haven't even looked. This was this document here. No, that's my document. This document, which I don't think has been touched in a while. I need to have. I'll see Brandon tomorrow in Detroit, so I'll bug him about this a little bit, and we'll see if we can come up with a little bit of a plan. I'd say again, just review it. I don't want to go over it at the moment. Okay, we've got barriers to adoption. Tracy just left. Oh, Tracy's still here. Tracy, do you have any quick comments on this? I see there's some new comments from today. Maybe not. Maybe Tracy left. All right, Tracy's not here. That's fine. We'll get back to that. Then I want to talk about something new. I've been kind of kicking around, and this came about because I want to give some background first. So there's this one-page overview which Kate volunteered to do, but it really came about because of an Apache ask. And basically someone said Apache should generate SBOMs. And then what we ended up with here was Mark and I go way back. And he said, like, can you give us some guidance? And this is a multi-pieced effort. I know what Kate's work has come from this, but I think it's not specific enough for what they're asking. Basically, they want the OpenSSF to tell people what to do, right? Like, what should an open source project publishing SBOMs look like? And this obviously ties into the work Kate is doing on this because we have to define like what is an SBOM, right? What should you do? Like there's these ideas: source, build, deploy, runtime. Kate, did you have a comment?
Yeah, there's also there is a document that basically lists exactly which fields need to be filled in for the minimum for NTIA.
Yes, and
well,
I have a link to that here. So anyway, the link in the notes, which is down here at the very bottom, I put in, this is kind of what I started kicking around, is please do not read into this in any way as attempting to be like, canon guidance or anything. It's just, I think open source projects, there are some that want to know, what should I do to publish an SBOM? And today, that I'm aware of, I would gladly accept a correction to this statement, but I am not aware of any guidance telling people like, make an SBOM, put it here, name it this, that I know of. And the NTIA document obviously doesn't specify, it just says what should be in it.
The SPDX folks have recommendations on the file extension, and I believe Cyclone does too.
Do they?
Cyclone gets to,
Mhm.
yeah.
Both
But
of those-
that's although
both of
that's
those-
only the extension. That doesn't give you the full name, obviously.
Right.
I don't
Okay.
know if you've got this one
Part
or
of
not.
the repo
right.
convention. Right?
I'm sorry, somebody else is speaking. Who's that?
This is Brian. I was saying that the name, the exact file name has to conform to the repo specification. So there is a standard for classified artifacts in Maven.
So in the Maven universe, now remind me, you're generating SBOMs in Maven, right?
Not systematically. The Commons project is now doing it with Cyclone. So there are examples of it out there. And there's a pull request to enable it for all Apache projects. So,
Okay.
but the point is, the file name structure will need to follow the format of whatever the ecosystem is. So Maven has one thing, and PM presumably would be something different, right?
I would expect SBOMs typically. I mean, I would suggest the naming convention be a lot like many other things. If it's for a package, name of package dash version ID or version string, if you want to use that term, and then whatever the conventional extension is.
David, it depends. I actually wrote one of these documents for my company for all the various package managers. It actually depends what the package manager says. So sometimes it's like where you place it next to it, another side you place it inside of it. It was actually way more complicated when I wrote it than I thought it would be. I did it for 11 different package managers, and then I was like, okay, I need a break.
Okay, this is what we don't want, right? And I think this is where this group can hopefully provide some guidance to avoid 11 different ways to do this. And
I think that's a choice.
Basically, if you follow the package manager's practices.
Yeah, hold on. I can't hear anything because Brian and Thomas were talking at the same time. I'll let Brian go first, and then let's use hands after this.
Okay, sorry. I was going to say, that's not a choice that this group has. You're not going to change the Maven standard for one file. That's not happening, just like any of these other ones. So capturing and circulating what the standard would look like, I think makes sense. But defining it, it's not going to. We're talking about a lot of uncoordinated repo systems that have standards in place for files, right? And a one-off for one file would never make sense in any of those ecosystems.
I'm fine. I agree with that. I think that makes sense. But that you're talking about, Thomas, are you talking about files in an ecosystem? It sounded like you were talking about files available and also included in artifacts. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's either you publish it next to the release artifact or within the artifact. Depends what the ecosystem says. And several ecosystems have dedicated repository structures that you have to follow for it. So I considered SBOMs to be like a metadata file. And a lot of the package managers define basically explicitly, this is where you have to put it. And this is the hashes and all the other stuff, or in the manifest that you have to basically specify that this file exists. And so for a lot of the package managers, this is basically written out for other purposes there. And you basically have to follow that. And at least that's what we did. And that's what we told basically to our customers was basically, look, SBOMs are just metadata. We follow whatever the package manager dictates. So
Okay.
and that's the nice thing. Then there's existing tooling that, well, it's not perfect in the open source community, but at least some open source tooling is out there that knows how to grab that data, because it's basically, it's defined. But a lot of tools don't.
Thomas, is that guidance something you could make available?
I don't own it. It's my previous company.
Got it.
My previous employer. That's one of the things I didn't bring, but well, it will take some hours to recreate it. I know a lot of the things still, but it has been like a year and a half since I write this stuff. This was in German automotive industry. They wanted to have a standard for this.
Well, if nothing else, I think what you just said is actually, I think, the key, which is the particular package. This is generally considered metadata. You do whatever the standard for metadata for that package is. In general, there still is a standard extension for these. You would generally prefer those.
Well, there's standard extensions and MIME types already defined, and they're specified in both specifications as to what you should use for the extensions on the files themselves.
Oh, Brian's got his head up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. My bad.
That's okay. What was I going to say? The survey of these seems like an appropriate question to kick over to the securing software repos working group, because most of these ecosystems have people there. We could quickly circle the wagons and make sure that we have an understanding of what that looks like. I mean, in fact, there is a survey already for those ecosystems that collect a bunch of things. We could add a column to what the SBOM standard would look like. That would be a pretty easy and useful way to cover this, I think.
And that's a good idea. I mean, and maybe we put naming files and where to locate them out of scope. And maybe it's as easy as just saying, generate SPDX and CycloneDX, follow the NTIA minimums, and optionally sign the thing. And then that might be like, because my intent here is, first of all, not to generate like months of discussion, because that's not helpful to anybody, but then also to use this as a vehicle to better understand what's happening in the world. And it's clear there's a lot going on already, many of us don't even know about, which is not ideal, because we're going to end up, well, as Thomas said, like 11 different ways to do this, which sucks for the person who has to consume it.
Again, it's 11 different ways, but it follows the standard of the package manager. So again, it's how you look at things. For the people in the Python ecosystem, it makes perfect sense to consume it in this way. For Maven, it makes perfect sense on the other side. I don't think it's that difficult, because for us, when we did the check, most of these archives are like kind of like zip-based archive kind of stuff. And I just searched on the file extension. I just completely ignored the standard. I'm looking for CycloneDX with this extension. I'm looking for an SPDX file with this extension. All the files, and it was fast enough. So.
Gotcha. So wait, you're saying you were looking like in the zip or elsewhere?
Inside the zip and
Okay.
besides it, basically. So we just,
I got you.
for Maven, you have to place it beside it. And so you would just download, you would just check the file name. It's like the source total jar. We would just basically check the file name and see if there is a similar package name or package.name.jar, the replace jar with spdx.json. And if it was there, then we'll pull it.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, the emphasis we're using is the lifecycle stuff. We want to produce SBOMs in our CI pipelines, and the OCI artifact spec has gone a long way for OCI compliant images, as well as any artifacts to store SBOMs relative or related to the binaries you produce and push to an artifactory. And things are, and there's automatic verification from the clients and stuff like that. There's work with SigStar to do these things. So it fits into our larger ecosystem. So signage and association to our artifact, there's a whole set of tools that are set up to do verification on the push and a verification on the pull into Kubernetes and a whole bunch of things, mutating access controllers and whatnot. Admission controllers, you can say.
Is that part of the OCI spec now? I don't, last I looked.
OCI Artifactory version 2 includes the ability to associate media types including SBOMs, and JFrog and other Artifactory providers have already implemented that stuff. In fact, I think some Docker and stuff is implementing proprietary stuff. So people are having this concept of pushing to images to your registry, but again, Artifactories are not just OCI images, but can be any binary.
Right. Okay. But no, I know you can do that, but there was an effort to actually like formalize that expectation. But I don't.
Yeah, and my OCI guy, Mike Brown, he tells me that it was complete about a month ago.
Oh, fantastic. That's very exciting. Okay, so we should look that up too. Something about, I'll just add a comment here.
Yeah, I know that a lot of Docker actions and things are doing this automatically as well. They have Docker actions that push to and use that spec right now too. And I think there's cosign support. I think a colleague of mine just fixed a bug in one of the predicates for the in toto signature that goes into Recore.
Yep, I remember that. We got that. I think SIFT had a similar bug. Cool. All right, as I love that, 5 bullets created a ton of discussion. This amuses me. Okay, I guess here's my answer. I'm going to create a GitHub issue for this. I haven't created an issue yet, but I would like to create one. And I don't think we need to hem and haw over this at the moment, but I would like to see us put together something in this space, because I feel like, as we've just discovered, there's a tangled web of SBOM use and generation. And I don't want to tell people we're the only true way, but I would like to see some amount of guidance from this group to help, I guess, legitimize what we're doing, as well as just make sure people can go somewhere to seek guidance instead of just kind of making crap up, which is what I suspect is happening a lot now. All right. Does anyone else have any comments? If not, all right, we'll take that as a no. If people could review this, I would truly appreciate it. The only other thing we have on our list, which I've lost, is there's the purpose document, which I don't think we've done a lot with over the last kind of month. We need, between travel and getting COVID, I kind of fell off the horse in terms of keeping some of this wrangled. So I don't want to spend any time on this today, because I'd rather just we all escape and get back to work. But I'm going to put some thoughts and ideas together in GitHub. If everyone can make sure they review it, I'll put some stuff in the Slack channel as well over the next couple of days. But are there any other comments or questions, or should we free ourselves? All right, let's all go. Thank you, everyone. This was, I think, very enlightening and productive. Until next time.